Hello and welcome to another video in our incense course. In this video we are going to go over all the many tools for Xiang Dao, for the way of incense. There are many, and a lot of these aren't tools that we actually use, and some of the methods, as you'll see later, that we're going to teach are very simple and don't require so many tools. But we thought that we would go over all the tools kind of that you will encounter maybe as you explore the world of incense. This is kind of like tea in that there are a lot of brewing methods, and each brewing method has its own wares. And as you start to figure out what kind of tea you want to brew and the way that you want to brew it, then you start to realize what tools you need, and then you start to collect those tools, and then maybe you get better ones and maybe more, and you realize, oh, I would like this, I would like this. And so there's really many configurations that you can have. Yuting tends to teach a more simple method. It's a little more Zen, you could say, a little less things. And then just like in tea, there are essential pieces, and then there are peripheral pieces that you could get if you want to, that are just nice to have but not necessary. So there's a lot of that. And so we're going to go over kind of all the things that you'll encounter, starting with the simplest method of making incense, and then we'll move on to some of the other accoutrements that are here. So we'll start, I think, with the essentials. And essential number one, of course, is that you need a censer. And there are many kinds of censers and many shapes. And we're actually commissioning to produce our own that we're going to have on the site soon. In the meantime, we talked in a previous video about mitate and about using other things. We've made these tea jars into incense censers, and they have a lid so you could cap even you put it out and use it, save it for later, and they come in black or white. They have a nice gold rim. So this is one kind of censer. And then this is another kind of censer. This is another shape, and it's got a hole in the lid, so you can actually have the lid on while you smell. And this is a more wide one that's for stamped incense, which we'll go over later in the course. And then Yuting here has an antique one. This is This is a very nice antique, real antique censer. Maybe even from Song Dai的吗？明代的？
可能更古老一点。
Oh, wow, even older, she say. Wow. Maybe Tang even. Tang Dai.
也有可能。
Tang or Song. So very old incense censer. And this one.
这是新的。
这是日本的吗？
不是，这是大陆的寺庙做的。
可是它的形状是日本的，是不是？
很像日本。对。
This is made in China, at our friend's place, where if you were on the annual global tea trip in Hangzhou, we went there, right? But it's a kind of replica of a Japanese style, and Japanese styles also go back and are influenced by Song Chinese styles. This is similar to the one that we're going to be commissioning out of celadon. We'll make it out of celadon like this. So she has some nice ones. And then here, of course, is an electric one, which we're going to have for sale on our website. And we're going to have a whole video later on about how to use this electric censer, which is real nice for convenience. It's also really nice when you want really nice incense to accompany tea. So incense isn't the center, tea is the center, but you just want this kind of sitting off to the side. This can be really useful for that. So there's a lot of kind of censers, and like we've done, you can mitate, you can use something that isn't a censer as a censer, and also find your own. And so there's a lot of shapes. Generally, for like traditional incense ceremony, this kind of shape is good, or this kind of shape is good. And then if you see a wider one like this, that would be good for stamp incense, which we'll talk about. And then, of course, we need some ash. And in a previous video, we showed you how to cook the ash. So you need cooked, clean ash. And it's nice to have a jar to keep your cleaned ash in after you've cleaned it, so it doesn't get any dust or anything in it. And this spoon's just for spooning out the ash. And then in a previous video we went over slicing the incense, slicing or scraping or paring or cutting. There's different ways of translating the different methods, and those are also discussed in the March 2021 issue of Global Tiat. So we have the same knife because Yuting helped me get my knife. It's a very nice knife. You do need a very sharp knife. We're looking to get some knives for the website eventually, so they will be up. This is a real nice handmade one. And she has here a nice little chopping board that she uses to cut her incense on, which is really nice. A nice little cutting board to use to cut, and just a别的刀啊。
对，这是很简易的刀子。
Oh, this is another knife. This is a simpler one that you guys maybe could get something like this. This is looks like from a hardware store or something, but it's also very sharp. The sharper the better, right? And she also uses this one as well, along with the nicer one. Remember, in our method, we cut the incense before the guests arrive. There are some people who cut in front of the guests. If you cut in front of the guests, then you probably want a nicer looking knife. But if you're cutting beforehand, it doesn't really matter. You could use something like this, and it'll cut also really good. And she 就是切的时候放在这里啊。
对。
And she has a little this is a cool thing. Some of you maybe will see that this shape is a little familiar if you have a pu'er tray. Some of you have a wooden pu'er tray. We have some handmade round ones, but often they're made out of bamboo and they're square. 就是pu'er 的那个
大的。
对对，竹子的。This is similar to that. So you can put your cut pieces here, and then they will come out really easy from this side, just like you can with the pu'er. You've seen those square bamboo trays, and they also have a kind of opening in the corner, and it allows you to get the tea out after you've broken your cake. So those are kind of neat instruments. And here's some scoops for putting the incense into the censer, and you could have it out also in your shangxi, your stage for your incense ceremony. You could have it out in this. You could also have it out in a little incense box. So here's a new one. We're also going to be commissioning some of these to be made, so you guys will be able to get one. We're going to make a little set. We're going to have a little jar for tools, and we're going to have a censer, kind of similar to that Japanese shape, and we're going to have a little box. She's got a nice antique one here. 这个也是宋代啊. This is also Song Dynasty. Got some nice incense inside too, and so this is a nice way to also have the incense out on display. So we need that, and then here we have some stamp patterns for making stamp incense, which we'll go over in a later video. This one's a lotus, and it's got these convenient little handles on it. It's nice if they have handles, right? So this would go in this one. You can then put the powder into the mold and then lift the mold up, and you get the nice pattern, which we'll talk about in a later video. Here's one that's a cloud shape, and it also has a little handle for picking it up. So those are kind of cool. And then you need some kind of something to light the charcoal in a traditional ceremony. You need somewhere to light it. So, and you need, of course, charcoal. So here's a little tray for lighting charcoal, and it's got these little spikes on it. So the charcoal kind of sits above the tray, and then this one you would use a lighter. That method, though, isn't as nice as the one Yuting taught us, which is to use a candle. And she's, again, mitate, she's converted a teacup, and there's a metal thing on top. And we're going to have those metal things, and we're going to also commission a nice cup for it. And you put a candle inside, and then the candle lights the charcoal, and you don't have to have a lighter out when your guests are there doing like that. It's like slightly disruptive. There are a few kinds of charcoal. In Taiwan, we often find this kind of big, kind of round one, and it's too big. I feel 太大了啊，这种啊，而且它里面有镀吗？
它没有，它是有加助燃的，烧的让它烧比较容易烧起来。
Yeah, they put some like chemicals in it also to make it burn easier, which we don't like as much, and it's a little bit too big. And these are the ones that are common in Taiwan. And then she has some epic handmade charcoal with even gold leaf on it. That's for like a real special ceremony. You want to use that one. She probably doesn't have too many of those. And then we have these little squares which are gonna come with our incense kit, and we'll also have on our website. These come from Japan, and they're a little bit cleaner. So these are the cubes that we're going to be sending with the set. They actually come together as one piece like this when you guys get them, but this also is too big. So they don't really need to be this big. So what we do is use just an ordinary steak knife and just cut them in half. It's helpful to like cut on one side, cut on one side, cut on one side, cut all around, so you get like a groove on every side, and then put the knife in the groove and go all the way through. And that way they won't break. And this doubles the amount of charcoal that you have. So that's good as well. And we found that like half a piece is the perfect size. So you do need charcoal, and you need something to light it on. The ideal for us is to have this metal thing. It's got these mesh crosses on it, and then you put the charcoal on top, and then the candle from inside lights it, which is really cool. And you'll see that as we get into the videos showing the different methods of doing it. And then we need the tray. In some, we're going to learn a few methods. In some methods, we don't need the plate to put the incense on. So in some methods, we have a plate that sits above the charcoal, and the heat roasts the plate, and the plate roasts the incense. But in other methods, you can just put the charcoal in, and it's much simpler. This is going to be the first method that we teach in a later video. You just put the charcoal in, and you put the incense on top of the ash, and you make like just a little indentation in the ash, and the ash heats it. But there are many kinds of plates. And there are also often, especially if you're going to have a long session where you are going to experience multiple types of incense, people will often have these kind of like a little tray for putting the different plates on, because you can't clean it during the session. So it's a bit like in a tea session where, like, if you're going to have a long session, you're going to drink 2 teas, you would just put one pot aside and you get a new pot out, and then you would brew the second tea in a new pot, as opposed to like cleaning the pot out and brewing another tea. Usually you just get a second pot out. So like you put that tray there, and then you could you'd have another one here and another one. And so often they have these things for putting. She has a real nice this one's cool because it has these little celadon like stands for the plates. Hers is really cool. It's made of burl, and so it's really cool. She can hold like 4. This one holds 5. And then there's lots of different types of plates. The simplest is made of mica, often with metal around the side. Sometimes it's silver. Sometimes it's just tin or pewter or whatever. But the sheet of mica stone is very common for a plate. And then there is silver. She's got a few different types of silver here. And then there are old antique, they take like broken antiques, ceramics, and like grind them down and polish them and make plates out of them. And here's one that is made, also really cool, that is made of tianmu, like the bowls. We have a whole issue of Global Tea about tianmu bowls, right? With the rabbit's fur. And here's a little tianmu plate for incense. And then a lot of silver. And the different materials and the different even shapes and stuff all have an influence on the incense. A bit like teapots. Different clay, different shape of the teapot will completely change the tea. So maybe we can ask Yuting to talk a little bit about the differences in the plate. So 你可以说一点，就是他们什么分开，就是用这个或者这个或者这个，就是
一个是形状，我们有教切，那切起来它有形状，形状比较细小的哦，我们可以让它隔比较远一点点，所以我们可以用那个平一点点的，哦，或者是温度让它比较不会那么高的。
Oh, okay. So the first consideration in what type of plate you're going to use. In the beginning, you could start out really simple. Our sites are just going to come with the simplest, with the mica, and you technically can use this for all. Just like you could start out with one teapot, and you could brew all your tea in that teapot, and then as you advance, you can, you get more teapots for different types of tea. Same thing. So
所以土层的话，我们要温度高一点，我就会选这种，让它比较深一点点。
So she said two things. The first one is the shape that you cut the incense. So how are you cutting it, small or big, and thin or thicker pieces? That will influence what you choose. And then the second thing she said is the temperature. So we have here a silver one that has a little bit of a indentation. And so this one will get hotter because it indents down. And silver 印会比这个热。
对。
啊，会比这个热吗？
也会。
So also just because it's silver, it's going to be hotter than the ceramic ones and hotter than the mica. So it's going to be a higher temperature. So 哪一个香要比较高的温度？
土层。
So the we talked in the incense about tuchan, about the incense from the earth, this stuff that was buried. That wants a higher temperature, for example. So you'd want to use silver. And then even though silver already is hotter than the ceramic or the mica, even within silver, different shapes will change the temperature a little bit. This one's, as I said, is indented, so it will hotter. 这个会比这个热。这个热一点。
对。
Yeah. This one flat, and this one has a little bit of a 凹进去。对。So different types of incense for different pots. You don't have to get so complicated. You can, in the beginning, just play. It's like teapots. You get teapots and you want to know, like, what does Duani do? What does Hongni do? What about Zisa? What about antique Zisa? Or cups, right? Antique cups, tulip-shaped cups, more wide and open cups, many different types of cups, and you start to see what tea liquor does to each of them, and you start to figure out that, like, oh, oolong likes to be in little cups and small sips because it's much more about the fragrance and upward moving qi. And then pu'er likes big cups and big gulps because it's much more about the chest and the stomach. And so we like to have a big warm cup of pu'er and take bigger gulps. And so you start to also learn to, to adapt different incense to different types of plates. But always, you can, when you look at all this stuff, you can get overwhelmed just like with tea, or you can take it as an invitation to explore. There's a lot of fun and you can experiment and just try all these different things. And, not all of them are expensive. You might think even silver is very expensive, but we have these little ones. They actually come with the electric burner, these little silver ones here, and we're going to sell them separately. And they're very affordable. So you can play with silver even, and we're going to try and find some ceramic and other ones to put on the site too. So we'll offer those. So aside from that, then usually you have a little vase to keep your utensils in. So I'm going to let Yuting talk about the utensils and the ones you absolutely need, and then the peripheral ones. So you can kind of already start to see what is essential. Ash is essential, charcoal is essential, something to light the charcoal on is essential, but that could be, really anything, a screen on top of something, or, You can adapt anything. Some kind of censer is essential. Some kind of knife is essential for cutting the incense. And then you have things like this little trays for keeping different plates out when you're going to have long sessions. That's not so essential. And like this little tray for catching your things isn't essential. An incense box isn't essential. You could just use a little tea scoop, right, and put it out. So let's ask her, now that we're moving into the utensil part, the actual utensils, let's talk about the ones that we really, really need. So 最简单最需要的是哪一个？
香柱跟羽毛。
好了。
对。
Okay, so you can, and this is going to be our most basic set with the censer and the mica plate. And remember, there's going to be a method with no plate. We're going to be teaching a method with no plate, so even the plate is unnecessary, really. You can practice incense without even the plate at all. So she says that the only two things you need are the incense chopsticks. These ones are silver, but you can also get them in copper. We're going to have a couple options eventually on the site. We're going to have silver and also some simpler ones that are just metal, but they come in copper. Yuting actually she handmade her own copper ones for us, and so we have those too. Those are super stoked to get those and to have them. We were all really happy. So hers are silver, mine are also silver. Mine are antique from Japan. Hers, I think she made. 这是你做的吗？
这个是用银做的。
是你做的吗？
对，手工做的。
She made these herself out of silver. She hammered them and forged them and everything, just like the copper ones she gave us. So special. And you can often find cheap silver ones and cheap silver things on Chinese websites and stuff, but there really is something to the quality of the silver, and silver influences a lot in the smell and everything. So really all you need is that and a feather. And the feather we're not including in the set because we recommend you find your own. Mitate, go find your own. And she's found all these. And if you want to, it's very helpful if you attach the feather to a little piece of bamboo. She just sticks it in. There's no glue or anything. She just sticks it in. Makes a little hole in the bamboo. Find the right thin piece of bamboo and stick it in. But if you can't find that bamboo, you can just the feather has a stick, so you can just hold the feather. You don't need the bamboo actually to use this. So this is the only tools you need. And you don't even really need the jar, the chopsticks jar, the jar for utensils, because you could just set these she has hers set out on a little piece of bamboo over here. So you could just set these the way you set like the utensils that you use with a tea scoop, like a spout cleaner and a guide for putting tea into teapots. The same thing. You just set these out. You don't even need this. This is also peripheral, right? So the only two you really need is the feather and the chopsticks. And you can get simple chopsticks or silver or whatever. And then a feather, just find your own and stick it in a piece of bamboo, right? And this one's really cool. As some of you know, this is mine. Yuting stuck it in there for me. But as some of you know, we have a bird at the center. I'm not really so into keeping bird as pets, but this bird actually, Joyce was walking down the road and she just flew and landed on Joyce, and then Joyce went around, it's a parrot, went around the houses, tried to find the owner, and no owner, so she became ours. Her name's Leela, and this is one of Leela's feathers. So that's nice for me. Have our bird's feather on there. But you can just find a feather and you don't even need the piece of bamboo. So that's all that's it for really all that you need. And we're going to, some of the methods we're going to teach, that's it. We're going to teach you how to just use just those few utensils for getting started. So don't be intimidated. There are a lot of other things. Then maybe next we have this guy. This is a real nice one. There are different kinds of this. I'll show you some others. This one's silver as well. And this is for putting the plate onto the onto the top of the ash once you've made the ash and the charcoals in it, and you're going to pick up the plate and put it on. We'll have her. She has the same one. She helped me get this. So you can see it kind of, it's a little challenging to use. It kind of goes over your hand like this one, and then you squeeze it like she's doing, and you can pick it up and put it down. And this is for grabbing all the plates, mica, whatever silver plate you're using, and putting it on. Of course, you could use your hands for this. You could also, 如果没有这个是用筷子啊？
用筷子可以，但是要比较小心，因为
If you don't have this, you can also use the chopsticks, but you need to be careful. You need to be really careful. It's hard to do. 也可以用手啊，如果你没有这个。
用手会有味道。
Oh, your hand will have oils, and that will affect the smell. So she said better to you can use the incense, and as she's doing right there, and put it on. You just have to be really careful. It's a little easier with the mica plate that we're including, actually. So, and I think the mica plate, because it has the metal around it, 这个因为它下面有铁。
但是银的边边。
哦，
对，
会边边。如果你用手，这个。
对。
用手可以吗？这个，因为它外面是铁的，银的。
银的，你说用手放上去吗？也可以。对。
This one has because I have metal around. You can use your finger. It's not ideal. Again, a little oil on this. This one has silver around the edge. Some of them it's other metal, but you could use your finger if you're struggling with the chopsticks.
可以用最便宜的夹子。
And she said, if you can't get this nice silver one that folds over the hand, 是对吗? That folds over the hand in this elegant way that you're holding it properly, right? If you can't get that, then just get some simple tweezers. These are like, hardware store or beauty store tweezers, and just use some simple tweezers to grab it, and those will work fine. It's a little hard, huh? There we go. Yeah. So just get yourself some simple tweezers if you don't need. And then another type of tool, she has one over there. I have mine here. Is a spoon. And this is for powdered incense. Fun.
香粉.
Yeah. This is for powdered incense. If you're going to use powdered incense for like making the stamp, which we're going to go over later, right? For adding to the stamp, or if you're going to use it in the ceremony, because you can use pieces or powder, as we'll go over in a video. And then I have this tool, which is kind of a beginner's tool. She doesn't really have one. She doesn't use them. She teaches us a different way. But this is, I find, helpful for beginners. And you could make one of these really easily. This one's nice. It's silver and it's got wood. But it's kind of like a spatula. And you could, you could make this out of bamboo or out of wood or out of a piece of metal. And this is just for flattening the ash. And it's kind of like a kindergarten method for those. She uses the chopsticks, which, as we'll see later in the videos, and it's actually better and more ideal that way. But this, I find, is just it makes it a little easier for me. It's just because it's flat and it's 用这个比较简单一点。
对，会比较快。
Yeah, a little faster, she says. So you can use it that way. I have this guy too, which I don't use so often, but you'll find these a lot. This is a friend gave me. This is for making a hole down to the charcoal in the ash, for just making a hole, which of course you could do with a chopstick. You don't need a separate tool for this. You can do that's usually most people all do that with the chopsticks. I usually do it with the chopsticks too. The feather has actually all kinds of uses, as you'll see later on. She often uses it to put the incense in, also to clean the sides of the censer. So it's a really essential one. But so this one really hardly ever used. And And then I have a set here that's very common. Some of you might see sets like this. If you go online and start looking for incense tools, you'll often get a set like this. These are very common. These are common kind of sets and tools and that you'll just see around. So I thought we could go over the stuff that's in it as well. Even though we don't really use all of these things, you should know what they are, because this is a common set of kind of everything there is. So here is just a bigger version of grabbing the plate, the tweezers for grabbing the plate of this one, right? This is just a bigger version of that for grabbing the plate. And here's this set's chopsticks. You can see they're much fatter, which might be helpful if you're a beginner, but I find the little ones are so much better than these bigger, fatter ones. These are just so much more useful than these, and they're also sharper, and they just work better in every way. This also, you often see this. We don't use this. These are wood chopsticks for grabbing pieces of incense. So oftentimes some people, they use different chopsticks for like arranging the ash and getting everything ready, and then they have a special set of wood chopsticks for taking the piece of incense and putting it on. They just want to separate, but we just use the regular chopsticks, or she uses a feather and puts it on. So no need for these, but these are common in Japan to have these wood chopsticks and metal chopsticks. One is for working with the ash and getting everything ready, and one is just for the incense. But that role could be everything really can be done with just the chopsticks and the feather. So, but you will often see these separate chopsticks made of wood just for the incense. And then here we have the feather. This one has a feather too. It's a little bit hard to get out, but it has a metal bottom. That's common, right? And some people like white feathers, so often the sets have white feathers. And this set also has a little spoon for incense powder. Yeah. And then it has these three tools, which we rarely use. And I'll let her explain. 这个呢？
这个也是在拨香下去的，跟那个羽毛的功用是一样的。
Oh, this is like the feather for getting the incense into the censer, but it can be helpful. This little spade shape can be helpful, especially with the stamped incense, like for getting the powder into the mold, like kind of scratching it over because it's got this flat surface and a little point, so you can use it to kind of get more into the mold. And then this is like a common thing. This is basically the equivalent of my easy thing, of my, it's just a bigger one, that thing that makes it quicker. And it's not just quicker, it's easier. I don't use this because it's quicker so much as I use it because I'm a beginner and I find it just easy. This one's super convenient because it has a flat side, so you can like flatten the incense, and then it has this side with a pattern that looks like, as you're going to see, we often make patterns, and the patterns are made with the chopsticks in the ash, right? And so this kind of mimics chopsticks. It like fakes it. So you do this and it looks like you did it with the chopsticks, but you really cheated, right? Because there's all these grooves on it. And so, as you're going to see later on, once you've made the pile of ash with the charcoal in it, then she'll take a chopstick and make a beautiful pattern slowly with the chopstick. And this kind of cheats and makes it look like you took chopsticks and did that. And then the backside is flat, so that's the same use. Mine doesn't have that cheat on it. It just has the flat. So the flat is just for easier flattening of the ash once the charcoal is in the ash. And then we have this guy. 这个呢？
这个是在把灰压平。我要做那个香钻之前，对，把灰压平。
这个要做这个。
对，
So this is this is a tool. So this is a tool for if you're going to make stamp incense. Before you make stamp incense, just like when you're doing the more traditional incense ceremony, you need to do, as you're going to see as we go through the methods, you need to like fluff the ash and make it into a kind of mountain to put the charcoal in. In order to do stamp incense, you need to flatten the surface of the ash. So this tool just helps you to flatten the ash by pressing it down, and that creates an even surface that you can then make this, put the stamp on top of. And you put the stamp then on top of that ash and then make the pattern and then carefully lift it up, and the incense is there in a pattern on the ash. So this is like a stamper. It's for stamping the incense down and for making it flat. So this is a common type of set that you'll see often around with this in China and Taiwan with the stamp, and then this is that tool for kind of flattening the ash, and it has on it the cheat side for making it look like you used your chopsticks and you were a good student, but you really just cheated and turned this thing over. So there's that, and then some metal chopsticks, which are a little bit thicker usually in these types of sets, which is good, might be good in the beginning for a beginner, easier to use maybe than the real thin ones, but eventually the thin ones are much more deft and better. And then it has these wood chopsticks that are just for the incense, kind of do the role of the feather also. And then it has a spoon for incense powder, and this little scraper for putting incense in, and also for getting it in the grooves of the stamp, if you're doing stamp incense. And then the feather. And then this, the tweezers for grabbing the plates. So this is a common type of set that you'll see around, right? So just to review, before we wrap this video up, the simplest things you absolutely need, you need a sensor, and again, it could be a tea jar, and then you need chopsticks and a feather, right? Which you can find, okay? We're not including that because we want you to find it. And then you need something to light your charcoal on. That can be anything. And you need charcoal. And you need ash, which you've cleaned, like we did in the video. And then you need, you don't need a plate, because the first method we're going to teach is with no plate. But eventually you are going to want a plate, and you're probably going to want a variety of them. And you do need some kind of knife to cut the incense. But again, she showed a real simple kind of hardware knife. I guess that's, it's a kind of hacksaw blade. This is a really sharp blade. And we also need a little cloth. Again, this can be any cloth. Just fold it up. We use this to, it's usually behind the sensor, and you're going to use it to clean the chopsticks. Of course, these you want to match your xiangxi. You want to, coordinate your colors and things.
这是手帕去折。
Yeah. So she has some different sizes, and we fold them up real small. It's different colors and sizes. We're going to have some, and we're going to have one comes with this set as well. So the little cloth just for cleaning the chopsticks, especially if you're kind of using the chopsticks to do several jobs. The cleaning of the chopsticks, then you don't need these separate wood chopsticks for the incense. That's why some traditions use the wooden ones, because they have the metal ones in the ash, and then you can use the wood ones to grab the incense. You don't need to clean these. But if you have a cloth out and you just wipe them off, make sure you get all the ash off, then you could use these also. Or what she often does is use these to arrange the ash and use the feather to put the incense in. So instead of, if the incense is prepared ahead of time, right, then you can just put it in a little scoop and from the scoop with the feather. But if you have it out in a little box, you might need to use these to grab it from the box and put it on the scoop, and then the feather to put it in. So we need to clean these often, so we need a cloth to kind of wipe them off, which we'll talk about how to do that when we go over the methods. That's kind of all the tools. 有yuan记的吗？ 这是香布啊。She's just saying like then like decorative elements like a cloth.
我没有瓶子的话，可以有一个垫在这里，那可以。
She's repeating something I said earlier, which is you don't need this. You don't need a utensils vase. And you can mitate. Look, she's using an old flower vase from Song Dynasty to put her tools in. And there she has a glass one to put it in. But she said if you don't have that, just get a stick of bamboo. Over here, she has a stick of bamboo and put the utensils out on the table on the stick. Put them out, just kind of leaning up. And you can do that. That could be because you don't have a utensils jar, right? Or that could just be on that day, your shangqi, your shangqi, your colors and things. Maybe the vase doesn't work, right? Again, use mitate. Find any vase and use it to keep your utensils in. So it doesn't have to be, something made for incense. And maybe that day you don't want it. You want them to rest out like on a piece of bamboo. And so this is where you get creative, and you can add different cloths and underneath, or a piece of wood underneath the censer, or a piece of stone, or tile, or anything decorative we haven't really included here. Little stands for maybe instead of this stand made specifically for putting lots of plates out. Maybe that you're going to only have 2 incense that day, and so you get this look at this little porcelain antique stand, and it fits 2 plates. And you can just put 2 plates there because today we're gonna have this incense and this incense, and there's just only 2 of them, and we'll just put them on that little piece of porcelain there, and that's enough. A lot of these peripheral elements there's a lot of variety and stuff, but you really only need the censer, ash, charcoal, chopsticks, feather, and cloth. Are the really kind of basic. That's the first method that we're going to teach. We're also going to teach about using the electric censer, and we're also going to teach about stamped incense as well. And then even in the more traditional incense ceremony, we're going to have 2 varietals. One is the more simple with no plate, just putting the piece right into, making a little indentation in the ash, putting it right in the ash. And then second, we'll learn how to put the plate on and try different things. And to start out with, you don't need to be so serious about which plate for which type of incense. You can learn that as you go, and you can also, it's one of those things that it's good to experiment. It's good to not just say, oh, my teacher said big cups are good for pu'er and little cups are good for oolong, but to try oolong in a big cup and a little cup, to try tea in porcelain versus celadon cups versus tianmu cups, and try all of them and see the effect that they have on the tea, and have a kind of experiential understanding. So, and it's really in the same way as with tea. It's great to just have an attitude of experimentation and fun and play, and take all this not with intimidation, but as an invitation that there's always more to learn and lots to explore and get, and in all kinds of varieties of, you could get a bamboo with hand-hammered silver spoon. You could get a simple kind of bronze spoon. You could technically, for spooning incense, powdered incense in a ceremony, usually we use pieces in a ceremony, but you can use powder, or using stamp incense. You could even use a small, some kind of small regular spoon if you don't have a special incense spoon. You just have to be more careful because it's big. 如果没有这个可以用，也可以用这个。
可以。
就是要小心，因为它大一点。
对，可以用那个喝下午茶的小汤匙。
Oh yeah, she's talking about a chashaku, like a tea scoop. Also, it could even be used like a Japanese tea scoop for powdered tea, for whisk tea, for matcha. Could also be used. So that's a kind of basic overview of all the tools that one would need. Some of them are necessary, some of them not. Some of them are relative to different traditions of incense and not used in other traditions. Like in ours, we don't use the wood chopsticks. In ours, we don't like a plate like this for the charcoal that you have to then light with a lighter. We like to use the candle and the little this metal wire thing on top that has the crossed wires, so you can put the charcoal in it. It just burns and lights on its own with a candle. So that's about all the utensils there are. Find as many as you can or make them. You don't need to buy them all. If you want the convenience of buying a set, these kinds of sets are available. Otherwise, find what you need and explore yourself and have lots of fun doing it. Okay, we'll see you in the next video.